All right, I think we're live, everybody. Greetings, blessings, and good fortune. The Bitcoin Otter Show is back. Now, we don't have the radio station. One more week, hopefully, we'll be back there. One more week, hopefully, we'll see. I think that's going to be the case. But here we are in Chateau Otter, which, though not as good, is a way that we can communicate. So it may be a shorter show depending on interaction. I've already had one request in the comments when I announced that I was going to have the show of a topic, and I'm definitely going to go there. So, you know, interactively, I'm able, when I'm here at home, I'm able to see comments and so forth, so I can interact quicker than when I'm on my phone in the studio, the radio studio. And I also have the Otter alert line here. Okay, so we're going to be able to see and hear and interact with each other more quickly than we would be able to if I was in the studio. So I guess there is at least that to be said. But I'll tell you what, it's so much fun doing the radio show. This is fun too, but the radio show to me is just it's something that guys like me have always wanted to do. I've got a face for radio, so it's something that I've always wanted to do, and it works out very well when we do it. So next week we're definitely going to be there. So what I'm going to do now is make sure I have everything set up so that you can interact tonight. So the Bitcoin Otter phone the phone number is 737 256 9339. 737 256 9339. If not, we can just use the comment section and I'll be monitoring that. I checked what it is. What does it take for a live feed? What does it take for a live upload to be successful? And I think I'm on the lower spectrum of that as far as my uploading bit rate, but it looks like we're doing pretty good so far. I've messed with the settings a little bit, so hopefully the interaction can occur. So what is it that's going on in the Bitcoin / blockchain community this week? It's price-wise, it's not been a big change. Bitcoin itself is hovering around $20,000 per Bitcoin, which means that the Bitcoin is still 20,000 times better than the US dollar. Or at least that's the way I like to look at it. So what else has been going on? There are things in the news that sometimes you look at them and you wonder what is going on. What is it that is driving the things around us? And when you try to put things into perspective that way, sometimes you have to take that 40,000 foot perspective, meaning you back up from the particular subject you're looking at and try to see the whole picture. Kind of like when you go into a maps program and you see the whole world, and then you dive into the exact location where you want to see, and then you can see the roads, and then you can see individual homes or features on the landscape, things like that. So when you back up to that 40,000 foot level and you consider some of the craziness that is going on around the world right now, what you have to think of, in my opinion, what you have to think of is, what is the overall shot? What's the overall scenario going on? And I, excuse me, I have to come to the conclusion that we are in what many people would call World War III. Well, Otter, most of you would say, it doesn't seem like World War III. I don't see mushroom clouds. I don't see, everything, going out the window or hell in a handbasket yet. And thank God you're right. Yet. So what do I mean by World War III? I mean that we're in a war. And this war is an irregular war. This war is a war of information. So the information has been out there for generations. The information I speak of is anything from technology to basic things in life to cures for diseases. This technology, this information has been available for a long time, in my opinion. This is me, okay? I mean, if you want me to cure you of cancer because I know there's a cancer cure out there, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm sorry, I can't do that. However, do I believe that there are cancer cures out there? I sure do. I most definitely do. Do I believe they're suppressed? Absolutely, without a doubt. Here's something that we have to remember though. The system that we live under, that we've all lived under since we were born, is not going to go down easy. I do believe that we're going to have a different system ramp up and take the place of both financially and societally. We're going to be able to live in a different world. We're going to be able to live in a world where freedom is more important than a centralized structure of authority. So when we look at what it is we're seeing in this scenario, this war that I speak of, there are different factions, as in every war, and the faction that has been running the system for such a long time, and I would wager prior to the 1900s, this system was not only established but gaining a foothold, and then of course in 1913, with the advent, I'm going to lower down a little bit here, with the advent of the Federal Reserve Bank. That system solidified itself as a centralized power working against you and me, average people, actually making us debt slaves to their system as they devalue a fiat currency further and further, accelerating that devaluation in 1971, I believe, when they took us off the gold standard with that wonderful man, Mr. Nixon. So once that occurred, it was only a matter of time until it accelerated, and now it is going downward in a death spiral. This, I'm speaking of the value of the fiat currency, the Federal Reserve note, the US dollar. It's in a death spiral right now, going down, and it's exponential now. It's unsavable. You can't salvage this current dollar for a few different reasons. One of them being they don't want to. It's always been designed to destroy this financial asset. If you want to call it an asset, it's a debt-based asset. So it's actually a liability to you and me, those that can't press a button and create more of them in our account, like these fiends here at the Federal Reserve. And pretty much the whole Western world is based on this centralized banking system. So this war I speak of is being fought globally. Why? How? Well, the why of it is people are done. People are they're through with this craziness of having to ask permission of some central authority to do anything. And I'll allude to that in one of our news stories today. But the reason that we're experiencing this pain is because, ironically enough, good guys have intervened quicker rather than later. And here's what I'm going to say to explain that. So when in 2016. Yeah, it was 2016. So 1900s up until about 2016, it was really with the exception probably of Kennedy, perhaps Reagan, and Reagan had his faults, but he was strapped with a New World Order freak named George Bush as his vice president. But it really happened in 2016 when their plan was derailed, when a populist, a businessman, by the name of Donald Trump, and love him, hate him, whatever you want to think about him, that event derailed the plan that these globalists had to basically make the United States into a third world power. So for 4 years, that plan was interrupted, but not only interrupted, it was reversed because industry came back to the U.S. We were actually at a point that we were energy independent. We had patriotism going with people actually loving America. And yes, the media was beating patriots down. The media was always beating Donald Trump up. Why? Because, well, again, he was a disruptor. Say what you will about him, but he was a disruptor. I see him as in this political realm, as a blunt instrument used to batter the the powers that be, and he really didn't back down, which in my opinion was a good thing. So after that 4 years of reversal, the plan that the globalists had was set back. What we're seeing now, once they got their puppet back in, what we're seeing now is an accelerated version of what they wanted to do over 8 years. They're now having to do in what they believe will be 4. That will remain to be seen. But they wanted to do this incrementally so that we either wouldn't notice or we would say, you know what, there are so many problems out there, they'd probably have introduced a war by now, having full capabilities over the military. We would probably have a war on our hands and a pandemic. We'd probably be locked down for years. So we would most likely, many of us would say, well, there's at least an excuse for this. This is why we're in the position we're in. But right now, after we were independent in many different ways, not to exclude energy, we're wondering, why is it that we're in this point where we're going into a recession for sure, maybe even a depression? Why is that? Well, the fact is, this has always been planned by the usual suspects. What they're doing, though, is waking up a lot of normies. They're waking up a lot of people that they would normally have on the reservation, watching Dancing with the Stars, watching reruns on Hulu. They would have those people if it was done incrementally. But it's like a shock. It's like, having somebody throw a bucket of ice water in your face. It's going to wake you up. So a lot of these normies who are in their own world, complacent and couch-ridden, are waking up to the fact that, hey, wait a minute, something's not right. Something's off here. And what I used to be able to do, I can't do anymore based on prices or be it gas, food, whatever. So what we're experiencing now is the war that, thank God, is not a kinetic war. This war is one between people that want centralized slavery in the form of debt slavery. They want mastery over our actions, our very homes, our being. They want to invade our body with all types of chemistry and technology. And the other side is more of a nationalistic, patriotic side. And I'm not saying just one nation. I'm speaking in a nationalist term of we in one nation state being proud of and wanting to further the people of this nation state, and others in a completely different country wanting to do the same for their countrymen. Okay, that's being patriotic. That's being nationalistic, which is anathema to a globalist, because that means that their plan fails. Well, thank God their plan is failing abysmally, because there are many patriots out there of individual nations. Okay, so the war, where is it? Where are we at? Well, I'll tell you what. The more the fools in the Western world place sanctions upon Russia, the better it gets, believe it or not, for individual nationhood, individual nation states. Why would I say that? Because the global system that these psychopaths imagine that they're going to inflict upon every human being in the world at some point, this is their goal. This global system, this global imposition that they want to place upon us, okay, is being fractured because Russia, China, Brazil, the BRICS countries, India, South Africa, all of these countries are now breaking away from that system. Now, I do know that there's deep staters in China. I understand that. The CCP, that evil organization, those communists, are definitely working toward the same goal that the Western central bankers are working on. And yes, they are at some level communicating. However, there's another faction out there of patriots. Now, again, these patriots might be patriotic toward different countries, but it all works together because each nation state wants autonomy, sovereignty, and all the things that make a people free. Okay? So you might say, Otter, Russia is not a free country. Well, that may be the case, but let's examine, and I won't go too far afield in this, let's examine the United States. How free are we, right? You want to own your home? Not in the United States. Alaska is pretty much the exception because there's no property tax there. But you think you own your home after you pay off that debt, that mortgage, that ball and chain? You think you own your home? If so, try not paying taxes on it. See how long you can stay with your family in your home if you don't pay taxes, property taxes on it. So there are many basic freedoms that we don't have here that we should. So continuing on, the sanctions against Russia and all of its people, one of which was an exclusion from the SWIFT banking system, which means what we do is when we pay online or we order something online or we do some sort of financial transaction online, it's through what's called the SWIFT system. It's a banking system here in the West that has been up for years. It's antiquated, but it's what we have. So they used to be able to use that in Russia. Well, they've been cut off from that, which in some ways is a good thing. And I mean that by saying that when you are forced to find alternatives, many times you do. And they've made an alternative to the SWIFT system. They've run their own system up, and they're going to be using that to perform financial transactions electronically, online, etc. So they've grown, because when you face adversity and you come out on top, you've grown in some way. So the Russian people are growing. They booted out McDonald's, or McDonald's was forced to stay back. I can't remember which, but either way, they replaced all the McDonald's restaurants with a local version of automated fast food. So they've grown in that respect. They've also, you could say either they already had a pair or they grew a pair, but they're mandating to the world that people buy their energy in rubles, whereas the U.S. used to do the same thing with dollars and no longer can. They cannot do that because the globalists that are running the United States are unable to gain that much authority, that much power anymore. So they're weakening on that front. So as we see these struggles, as a regular person who likes to watch these moves and these counter moves and the things that are going on in the world and in the news, we have to remember that we have a role to play. If you're listening to this show, if you're watching this show, you at least know that things are not right. So if we could just try to wake people up, if we could just try to pay attention to what's going on in the world so that we can articulate to someone else why it is we believe that we're either on the right track, the wrong track, or both, depending on what subject matter we're looking at, then yes, we can then wake people up. It's sort of like evangelizing. If you're a Christian and you want to tell people about Jesus, you better know what he wants to tell that person. You better know how he wants us to live. You better know the events surrounding his time here on earth and who he really is. So you read the Bible. Very simple. Very simple. That's my best analogy. Though I must say that if I were to choose the most valuable thing, it would be evangelizing Jesus Christ more so than waking people up. But for some reason, I've been called to both. So here I am trying to wake people up to the world economic woes, the world struggles, and there are many of them. However, I think we're winning. And that is the good news. I don't want to leave anyone on a despondent note. I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that, hey, Otter's just going to bring me down again. No, that's not my goal. My goal is to wake you up. My goal is to give you avenues of information that you can research, because you are the arbiter of truth in your mind. You must rely on your critical thinking skills, your logic, things that schools don't want to allow you to use anymore. They want to shunt you away from the Greek teachings of the pillars of learning, so to speak. They don't want that, because you would then be informed and empowered by the information that you would be able to sift through your own process instead of relying on someone with a suit on the 6 and the 10 o'clock news. That's what they want you to do. And there's a reason why they call programs on TV. There's a reason why they call it programming, and it's not a good reason. So, all that said, we're going to go into our news section. Again, I have the comments up here. I have the phone. I don't know if there's any latency issues with this live version, but if you'd like to call, I'm here. 737-256-9339 on the Otter Alert line. Or we've got the comments here in Facebook Live. I'm refreshing it right now. I don't see any up. So I really don't have a way of seeing who actually is watching other than if somebody pops in with a comment. So feel free to do so, and I can change streams and go back to it. So quickly, on the news. What's in the news? Okay, I go to our good friend Rick Gamboa's site. Remember I had him on a couple weeks ago. Great guy and a very informed crypto enthusiast. So he's got his own website called braintrustcrypto.com. So in this Brain Trust Crypto article, it says here, the Middle East could adopt Bitcoin soon, Serbian monarch. Okay, so a name that I'm not going to try to, well, I will. Here we go. You can laugh at me. Philip Karađorđević surmised that Bitcoin might experience adoption by a Middle Eastern country sooner than you think. The hereditary prince of Serbia and Yugoslavia shared his theory on a recent podcast. Okay, so we're talking about two countries here, Serbia and Yugoslavia, and they believe that basically the adoption of Bitcoin is coming soon. Okay, so again, as I've mentioned in many other shows, we don't see these things in the mainstream media. They don't want us to see this. They want to see Bitcoin at 20,000. They want to see Bitcoin at 0. That's what they want to see. They're not going to get it. But that's what they want to see. They want to hammer it down so that we don't escape the coming crash of their farcical scripture, which is the script of debt, the Federal Reserve note. However, if you know where to look, okay, like our friend Rick taught us in his website here, braintrustcrypto.com, and if you go to bitcoinotter.com, my website, you can see that I have a link there to Rick's site. And please make no mistake, Rick is a far sight more advanced than I am, okay? I am beginner centric when it comes to crypto. I can help out beginners based on the one-step rule, meaning I'm a step ahead of the very beginner, at least one step, but perhaps in some regards one step ahead, which is enough for me to be able to teach you how to do certain things like buy crypto, safeguard it, keep it in your own possession, and so forth. I can do that. I can help you with that. So on my website, you can see where you can make appointments with me. I can help you with that. Now, a guy like Rick, he's gone. He's like, if you wanted to put a satellite in the air, he's probably like the Elon Musk, and I'm one of the kids on the ground with my finger in my nose watching the thing go up. So that's a pretty good analogy there. So here's something I want to share with you. And you may or may not have heard me speak on this before, but the Georgia Guidestones have been destroyed. Yeah, many of you might say, what is he talking about? The Georgia Guidestones? What are you talking? The Georgia Guidestones? He's lost it. Okay, little backstory. The Georgia Guidestones were placed up there, I believe, in the 80s. And they were placed up there by someone anonymous. Nobody really took claim, although since it was where it was placed, somewhere just a little bit outside of, I guess, Atlanta, Georgia, the prime suspect was Ted Turner. He is a very well-known proponent of population control, just like that rat scoundrel Bill Gates. Okay, so they love reducing the population as long as it's not by using their own life, right? So in these Georgia Guidestones, there were 10 things to do to control the population of the world, which was number one, and rule over the world. 10 things to do, 10 things that must be done, and they were published in 8 languages. Then there were also 8 follow-up ancient languages like Sanskrit, Babylonian, and so forth. Okay, so here's a New York Post article that says, and these are in quotes, satanic Georgia Guidestones partially destroyed in early morning bombing. So it shows some pictures. If you want to check it out, it's a New York Post article, right? So the Georgia Guidestones are on a site about 7 miles north of Elberton, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation said. Okay, so they were partially destroyed by a bomb, and then a crew came in with a backhoe and just tipped the whole thing over. It was a pretty monolithic, fairly monolithic statue. It had reminiscence of Stonehenge, right? But you know, the number one thing on these huge cement slabs, the number one rule is keep the world population under 500 million. So here we are at nearing, I guess, 8 billion people. So that's a lot of people that have to be culled by these crazy psychopathic genocidal globalists, of which Ted Turner is one, and also that you know, guy pushing the vaccines, Mr. Bill Gates, who has bought, I think, 270,000 acres of farmland here in the U.S. It's crazy what these people are all about. So basically, this was destroyed, and in my book, that's a good thing. Hey, we got a comment here. We got Miles. Miles is saying, I saw an article that the euro is decreasing in value and is only about $1.08 per $1 US. I'm reading Miles' comment here. They accredited this to the world believing that the US dollar is more reliable and stronger during a recession and this inflation around the world. Do you think that with the US dollar being more stable around the world, will it increase the faith in Bitcoin, and will it start to rise again in value? Okay, there's the question. Do I think that the US dollar being stable will increase the faith in Bitcoin? No, and I don't necessarily think, Miles, that they're bonded. They're stuck. I don't think they're in a parallel or any type of ratio that at least we can identify. And here's why I say that. The dollar value that is pegged to the Bitcoin is a manipulated value. And I'm not sure exactly how they do it. I am sure how they do it with gold and silver. But when we're talking about Bitcoin, they have created ETFs, indexes, and so forth, where they create a parallel to the Bitcoin that can manipulate the dollar value. They can't manipulate the value, the true value of what Bitcoin really is. They can't do that because they can't destroy the faith in everyone with Bitcoin in everyone's mind. There are people like me that will never lose faith, no matter how much the mainstream media says, in the Bitcoin. I won't. I refuse. So the world central bankers, the Western central bankers, are using their ETFs, their indexes, to bring the dollar value of the Bitcoin down, which in the minds of normies, TV watchers, makes them think that, well, the value of the Bitcoin must correlate with the price, which is in my opinion, definitely not the case. So can a confidence in the dollar relate to a confidence in Bitcoin? And my personal opinion is no, because I think what the Bitcoin represents is a deflationary asset. The Federal Reserve note, whether people realize it or not, is an inflationary asset, meaning it's only going to inflate in numbers and decrease in value. Whereas the Bitcoin is actually programmed to increase in value and decrease in abundance because it's capped out at 21 million. We've already had 19 million minted. So the abundance is becoming more and more scarce. So there's a scarcity factor with Bitcoin that does not exist with the fiat US dollar that they print to infinity, and they're now giving away to unknown actors. We don't even know, but the hundreds of millions of dollars are being given away, and you know, most people are unsure. Hey, where's it going? We don't know. But it's not going to the U.S. economy, right? So that, Miles, and I really appreciate the interaction, the question. But my answer is no. I don't believe that confidence in the U.S. dollar will translate into confidence in Bitcoin. I kind of think that the ratio is opposite, because those of us who have a strong confidence in Bitcoin have a little or no confidence in the US dollar. And the reason we're running to things like Bitcoin is because of that lack of, basically confidence. It's a no confidence vote from the Otter. A no confidence vote in the Federal Reserve note. Thanks, Miles. So going on in our news from the Georgia Guidestones, we come to this millions of barrels. We're now on zero hedge, okay? And the article says millions of barrels from U.S. emergency oil reserves sent abroad, including to China. If anyone is ever sunk to the level of thinking that these things, this scarcity of energy worldwide, and we'll focus on the States, is a coincidence, an accident, or something that just couldn't be avoided, hopefully things like this will disabuse you of that notion. Wake up! For my Spanish-speaking friends, debe de estar una cachetada con mano mojada. For English, that means it's like getting slapped in the face with a wet hand. Wake up! Millions of our precious oil reserves that should be injected into the American society to keep trucks going, to keep, shipping lanes going, to keep all this stuff going, our whole infrastructure going, are being sent overseas. If you don't think this planned food outage, if you don't think, and we'll get on that further in a bit, if you don't think that this crazy recession, this hard times, hard scrabble scenario that's going on now is intentional, think again. Think again. Because actions like these have, since the resident took office in the White House, have been on a roll. The first thing was, yes, the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline was not operational and they didn't have oil flowing through it. But it was on its way to being there. That was immediately shut down. And many manner of other things. The oil leases here in the U.S. were shut down, or they were reneged upon on the people that were mining oil or drilling for oil on those platforms. Done. Get rid of that. Now they're sending our precious oil reserves overseas, including and especially if you take things into account, to China. Okay? There's no mistake there. There's no mistake. So to go in a bit further, with a growing, I'm going to read, and I know reading is not always fun on a broadcast, but with a growing number of people realizing that the Biden administration has drained more oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is meant to be used during real emergencies, not fake, made up ones such as Democrats facing a catastrophic failure at the midterm elections. Okay, so they're going to go into elections, and I'm not going to go there because Democrat, Republican, it's the same. Those are two different wings of the same bird. Okay, it's the uniparty. So I'm not going to succumb to that illusion that, hey, Republicans are great. Republicans are the solution to all our needs. No, ladies and gentlemen. God is the solution to all of our needs. God above is the solution to all of our needs. Okay? And what he did was blessed us with the idea of nation states. A quick historic lesson here. When Nimrod wanted to consolidate world power shortly after the flood, after God had told Noah and the family to disperse and be stewards over the world, this guy Nimrod comes together and he builds that Tower of Babel, and he says, we're gonna stay solid here. We're gonna stay strong right in this position here in this world, and we're gonna rule, right? What he meant was he wanted to dominate. So God looks down and he says, you know what? These men, they're going to succeed in what they want to do. So he came down and did something. So he struck them with different languages. They were babbling, hence the Tower of Babel. So they couldn't speak to each other. So they balkanized. They broke out. They went in many different directions and filled the earth and finally made it, ultimately what it is today, for good, for bad, for better, or for worse, whatever it is. But we are dispersed globally, right? Some of us would have me say worldwide instead of globally for various reasons I won't go into. But worldwide, we dispersed, okay? And it's interesting to note, just a little sidebar, interesting to note that at that point, God struck us with 70 different languages, which coincides with the 70 delegates that Jesus Christ sent out for the ministry of his church. Just go in there, look it up for yourself. Okay, anyway. So the nation state has biblical standing because God himself wanted us to be separated, to be separate. Why? My opinion? Because when we all come together and all speak the same language, it only takes one or a few devil worshiping scoundrels, okay? Because that guy Satan really exists. He really wants to kill you. He really wants to rule the world. And it'll be much easier if we have one nation as opposed to more than one. And we have more than 70 now. So when we have stronger nations, like in this case, I personally, my opinion is that the basis, the political structure of Russia is actually stronger than that of the U.S. And their struggle right now will benefit us because their struggle is defeating the globalists. We, on the other hand, as Americans, we want to tell little children that, you know, it's not enough for them to be male or female. They need to explore being the other sex. So we're a little bit messed up. Maybe a lot messed up in ways that Russia is not. So they're fighting the good fight over there. And many of us here on you know, American soil are fighting the good fight, but the media won't let you know that. Okay, so that being said, millions of barrels U.S. oil being sent abroad. We can go on that ad infinitum, but everybody knows that's a friggin' crime. So here's another thing from these geniuses at CNN. So these talking heads, and you've all seen it on the mainstream news. They talk to each other, they prop each other up. Once in a while, if they want some ratings, they fight. But CNN suggests gun shops should check buyers' social media pages before agreeing sales. This is on Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge has this CNN drivel. They suggest that gun shop owners check the social media of potential buyers of firearms. Why do we see this stuff? Here's why we see it. Because we have a Second Amendment. We have a God-given right to bear arms. We have a God-given right to protect ourselves and our families. And we have a God-given right to protect our country from enemies, foreign and domestic. And there's the rub. So what do? They are invoking Chinese tactics in this case. Why do I say Chinese tactics? Because China, the CCP, the Communist Party of China, has what's called a social media credit score. This social media credit score is your interaction on whatever platform you decide to interact on, and they gauge that. If it doesn't meet with communist standards, just like CNN, if your social media interactions don't meet with communist standards, the Communist News Network, that is, if they don't meet with the communist standards, they don't want you to have a gun because they know that they're about to do something to you for which you will shoot them. Yes. And when the government or a communist movement wants to suppress a nation, they can't have you shooting back. So they want the gun shop owners to sift through your Twitter feed, to sift through Facebook, to sift through whatever it is you want to act out on. I would imagine that if you're a member of True Social, they'll want, you know, the gun shop owner just to disengage all transactions altogether, I would imagine. But it's just another futile and telling effort on their part because they can't defeat the Second Amendment. It's there because God gave it there. The government did not. God gave us that right. The government does not. And especially not CNN. So here's some other ones coming up. So I had earlier, prior to the show going live, when I put my announcement up that I was gonna do the show, Jaime asked if I would speak on this subject, and I'm glad to. And the subject is of dying animals across the United States. I bet I would wager that it's not just the United States, but what's come to light in the news has been across the United States. So I think it was Oklahoma where 10,000 cattle died in Oklahoma, and the excuse was the heat. So the usual suspects in the mainstream media are again lying to us, telling us that the heat was at fault for 10,000 cows dying in Oklahoma. We know that's a lie. If they were dying in Oklahoma, why not in Texas? It's arguably hotter here in Texas. Why not in Mexico? So those are things that are going on. And I also highlighted the fact that the usual suspects came out with a GMO cloning of a cow that is heat resistant. Yeah, go figure. Coincidentally, at the same time, they're killing 10,000 cows or more. So here's an article that this was from the New York Post. So the New York Post says, Elena Labor charged after 1,000 pigs found dead at Iowa property. An Iowa woman is facing criminal charges after more than 1,000 pigs were found dead on the property. So a Sac County Sheriff's Office responded to a call, and they found animals dead at 2 confinement sites. Okay, so the office said that the pigs had been dead for at least a week and had no access to food or water. So this woman is being charged with 2 counts of first-degree criminal mischief and 2 counts of livestock neglect. Now, every top-down institution has its foot soldiers. And when you see some progressive activist in the streets burning down a building, in a position of some sort of authority, railing against traditionally American values like defending our border, if you see someone, normally they're raving lunatics, unable to control themselves or their mouths. If you see someone like that, that is the profile that the usual suspects look for when they want a foot soldier, when they want someone that is very much dispensable to them, disposable, to do their dirty work. And in this case, that's what I suspect this Elena Labor is. I suspect she, on some level, is one of those activists that wants to stand strong for the cause and was either partially, or I don't believe it was totally, but partially at fault for allowing these animals to die. They didn't have food or water. What's the excuse? It doesn't go further. The story doesn't go further, and I'm sure it won't, because no one will do an investigation on this. Or if it's investigated, the results won't be widely publicized at all, because you're going to feed animals unless you want them to die. If there's no money to feed those animals, well, then you reach out, right? There are people that can help, or if you're that desperate, you give the pigs away to somebody who can feed them, right? So there's no good reason. There are reasons, but there's no good reason for 1,000 animals to die at the hands of someone who refuses to feed and give them water. There are reasons, just no good ones. So moving on, and we see no comments on that one. Go for it. Remember, I'm able to see the comments now, so come at me if you got a comment. Here's a good one. Here's a good one. Those brilliant people in New York. Brilliant. And if you know anything about me, you know that I did spend some time in New York, in Western New York. Guns banned from Times Square. I think this is also the New York Post. Guns banned from Times Square as New York fights back against Supreme Court self-defense ruling. A landmark ruling struck down New York's historically harsh gun laws, triggering an emergency session to pass new restrictions. New York Democrats claim that if more people carry weapons for self-defense, there will be more gun violence. Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul maintained her anti-gun rhetoric despite the Supreme Court's decision declaring they may think they can change our lives with the stroke of a pen, but we have pens too. Oh, Kathy. You tell him, Kathy. You tell him. Tell him that nobody's going to be legally carrying a weapon in Times Square. No, not on your watch. And what does that tell them? What does that tell the usual suspects? Send your shooters. You want to shoot something up? You want to make sure no law-abiding citizen has a weapon there? You get somebody like you, Kathy. You disarm all the law-abiding citizens, and you're going to have a shooting event on your hands. Yes, you will. And that's exactly what you want. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's what gun free zones invite. When you have no defense, you invite aggression. My stance, there's the comments. You want to argue? Call me up. Argue. We'll argue about it. Okay? I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change mine. But I'll tell you what. When you have no defense, you look defenseless. You are defenseless. You are asking to be aggressively put upon, attacked. And when you have a group of people that have been notified that there will be no guns in this area, you're actually inviting them to come and do you harm, to wreak havoc upon your gathering. And unfortunately, these evil, evil people know that. That's why they make these announcements. Okay. Ghislaine Maxwell, sentenced to 20 years in prison for trafficking and sexually abusing underage girls. Now I know a lot of you are still thinking, why is it that there is obviously a very long list of clients of Maxwell and Epstein, and we don't see arrests of them? I know many of you won't believe me. I know many of you don't believe this. And you're welcome to your opinion. But I believe that there is truly a legal movement, a legal press going forward against those pedophiles, those freakishly evil, fiendishly evil people behind all of that and more that has not been publicized. They are literally going down. And I know a lot of people, no, you're crazy, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. Again, you're completely free to hold your own opinion. I am a free-minded, libertarian kind of guy, right? You're free to hold that opinion. But I believe that the reason why, the additional reason, the obvious reason is the people who are the Epstein clients are very powerful, right? So there's the obvious reason. And nobody's going to know about that. But nobody's going to know about them because they're so powerful. I understand that. But the additional reason is, in my book, that they don't want to jeopardize future cases by bringing them up in this corrupt judicial system that is it has been in place for so long that if they were to arrest these malefactors, these warts on the ass of society, if they were to arrest these people, we wouldn't see real justice. We have to have an awakening in our society. We have to have the ability of the average citizen to do their part, engage in civil society, and make things happen. And we're not there yet. But when the truth comes out, I believe at some point we'll be there. We'll have a critical mass of awakened people in our society, and we'll have justice. My personal belief, I know many of you don't share it. So that's why I don't believe the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell clients are not being named. Okay? So, what else do we have here? We have an interesting tidbit. This is coming from John Ehrlichman on Twitter. So, he's posting some big hitters, heavy hitters in the business world. And he's posting their first half performance now that we're in the 7th month of 2022. I know, time goes fast, right? So we're in the 7th month of 2022. Let me check, make sure I don't have anybody calling here. Put on my my volume, turn it up. So, as we're in the first half, now the second half of 2022, they've gauged the progress or decline of many heavy hitters, you know, in the Fortune 500. So here's a list of them. Apple down 23% in the first half of 2022. Microsoft down 24%. Alphabet, they own Google, 25% down. Amazon 35% down. Tesla 35% down. Zoom 40% down. Airbnb 45%, and it's getting bigger. Wow. So Coinbase, here on the Bitcoin Otter Show, we like to focus on cryptos. Coinbase is down 80%. Why? My suspicion is that the people who are running this price decline in crypto. Note I didn't say value decline. Price decline in crypto. Those that are engineering it are creating a scenario by which people are not buying cryptos. And when people don't buy cryptos, you don't have velocity of currency. And when you don't have that, especially for a cryptocurrency exchange like Coinbase, it's disastrous, right? So Coinbase is down 80% in the first half of 2022. Completely intentional, by the way. So you see all of these. Pinterest down 49%, PayPal down 62%, okay? Netflix down 70%. That is of their own doing. That is of their own doing. Netflix is a cesspool. Anyway, as I rant, I have to go to a quote that popped up on the Epoch Times. Epoch Times is a relatively conservative news outlet. So they have, when you get on their page, their website, they have a quote every day. And this quote was from Aldous Huxley. And if you're familiar with Mr. Huxley, he wasn't what you could objectively term a nice guy, but he definitely had some very perceptive moments and many, brilliant guy, many quotable utterings. So this quote says that men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history. Why do I allude to that? Because I believe we're in a historic time. I believe we're in a time where we are able to have or to leave a mark on history, a stamp. We, you, me, those of us that are speaking out. Because as the old system crumbles, a new system, and make no mistake about it, the new system is thriving. They're not going to, the old system won't. If you're looking in the apparatus of the old system, you won't see that, of course. But it is thriving. We are seeing adoption of cryptocurrency at record levels. We are seeing heavy hitters buy cryptocurrency. Now, again, it won't be gauged in a way that the mainstream media will measure. They're going to measure exchange level transactions, like Coinbase going down 80%, because the transaction level, the volume on these exchanges is down greatly because the regular people, the sheeple, aren't buying nearly as much cryptocurrency. But the heavy hitters don't use the exchanges. They don't use exchanges. They use what's called over-the-counter trading. They find other heavy hitters that will sell them Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it is they want to buy in huge amounts. But that's not recorded and reported on by the old system for obvious reasons. So the new system is being ramped up. It's ramped up. It's active. You can get out of this system currently, depending on many things. But the first one is education. You need to educate yourself. Okay? You've heard me tell you this before, but one of the biggest influences out there is Bitcoin Ben. And he has a Patreon account. And on that account, you can learn these things. You can learn how exactly to completely take yourself off the reservation and protect yourself from the crash of the US dollar, if you so wish. Or you can do, which what I'm doing right now is straddling. I have my own reasons for it. But I'm straddling the old system and the new system. So I can just push off at the very end as that old system dies off and goes underwater. And Bitcoin Ben uses the analogy of the Titanic going down. So when that goes down, I'm going to lean all my weight and put my other foot in the new system. But until that happens, okay, I'm straddling it. But if you do believe, like I do, that the old system, the old way of doing things is crashing and burning, then protect yourself. If you contact me, I will help you. On my website, bitcoinotter.com, I have a link, a few links, but I have a link to one of Bitcoin Ben's companies, which is called Calyx Solutions, where he sells crypto-only laptops. Along with those laptops, he gives one-on-one instruction, or his partner, Patrick, give one-on-one instruction on how to use these laptops, how to keep yourself safe in the cryptoverse, okay? How to do things that will keep you and your family hopefully safeguarded from this coming crash. Now, I'm not a fearmonger. I'm not trying to make you afraid and get you to buy things of me and my friends, from me and my friends. What I'm here for, and again, I'm working on the beginner level. That's me because I'm only a year and a half in on this. I can teach you many things, but I can't teach you things that Bitcoin Ben and his organization can teach you. I can't teach you things that Rick Gamboa can teach you, programming smart contracts and things like that. But if you're a beginner and if you're interested in getting into crypto or just learning about it, give me a call. Give me a call. 737-256-9339. I'm there. I've got a calendar service that you can set your own appointment on. So I'm gonna end the show pretty quick. We're running. Oh wow, we've already run into. I've been babbling for almost an hour now. Wow. I hope you enjoy what it is that I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to wake people up. I'm trying to gain interaction, and I'm trying to do my part. What I believe to be fulfilling my role as what God wants me to do, at least in this way. There are many roles, many responsibilities for us, but this is one of them, and I want to live up to it. So I thank you, Miles, for your comment, your very pithy question. You really you dialed it down and you got exact, you got precise. Thank you, and hopefully I gave you a satisfactory reply. So as we close out the show, I want to let you all know that I care about the little guy because I am a little guy. My family is an average family, and I want us to win. I don't want us just to survive. That's not enough. I want us to win. I want you to win. Our country is a country of winners. Yes, we do have bad things in our past for those people who like to focus on those. All countries do. All humans, regardless of color or creed, conquer. Unfortunately, that's the way of man. And it won't change until God himself comes and rules here with his kingdom on this earthly land. Okay, that's when it's going to change. But until then, people like you and I can fight the good fight. Great song, by the way, by Triumph, if you guys are on the younger end of the spectrum, age-wise, and you want to hear a great song that'll really pump you up, Fight the Good Fight by Triumph. Oh, man, I love that. Anyway, I love you all. This opportunity to reach out to you means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you. In a couple weeks on the, let me check my calendar here. I want to say it's the 21st, but I don't want to jump the gun. Yes, Thursday the 21st at the McAllen Creative Incubator, we're going to have our crypto meetup. Okay? I would love to see all of you out there that are interested in talking about cryptos. You don't necessarily have to know anything about them. Just talk about them, and you can learn from people that are deep in there, like Rick Gamboa, a couple other friends of mine, or guys that are complete beginners that pop in just to say hi. So please, if you're interested in cryptos and you want to meet up face-to-face, we'll be at the McAllen Creative Incubator at 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st of June. And next week, Lord willing, we'll be in the station again. 97.7 KCYP, the city in McAllen. It's going to be great. Hope to see you there. I'll probably throw some things up during the week. We'll see. But thank you for tuning in. God bless you. God bless you all. Have a great one.